Eventually, although it certainly took long enough, I learned that Yuzuki-senpai's first name was Chi. I'd just gone on calling her senpai and Yuzuki-senpai all this time and became so self-conscious about it that I couldn't get it out of my head. If you're wondering why I suddenly thought of that, it's because I heard senpai's friend calling her Chi when I spotted her at school. Senpai, your friend seems to call you by your first name, don't they? It had been on my mind from the moment I heard it around lunchtime, but I had to keep the thought to myself until after school. Senpai was older than me and wasn't a train commuter, so she didn't have any reason to hurry home. There were a vast number of differences in our day-to-day lives, so the times I could meet with Senpai were limited to between classes, at lunchtime, and after school. Those moments rarely added up to much throughout the course of a day. I wondered if Senpai really felt satisfied with that. Don't your friends do that too, Sayaka-chan? Well, it wasn't unusual for people to call me by my first name, but I never called anyone by theirs. I wonder if it's because of the gap in our grade levels. I don't think it's something as significant as that. Things like that probably differed according to each person's disposition. I wondered if I should have been calling her by her first name all this time. Her friends called her by her first name, so having her girlfriend call her by her last name made it seem as though our relationship was more distant than friendship, when it was supposed to be quite the opposite. But I had another concern. Sayaka-chan, even if I did call her by her first name, I hesitated over whether to add an honorific or not. To not do so, when she was older than me, went against my sensibilities. When I thought about calling her Chi, in order to try it out, all I felt was a sense of incongruity. Then would it be Chi-san? That felt almost like I was a customer service employee, or like I was putting on airs, which just didn't sit quite right with me. I doubted that I could keep up a conversation calling her that. Chi-senpai, then. If I were to call her by her first name, that would be the most appropriate way to do it, I thought. When I rolled the sound around in my mouth, it felt embarrassing. It was like I didn't know where my heart lay. That was how it would have felt, calling her that. Chi-senpai. What was I thinking? It felt like if I called her that, the person in front of my eyes would see me as an entirely different person. I abandoned them all, realizing they were all too difficult. I think that senpai just suits you best, senpai. I omitted everything in between. If I'd explained all of my thoughts honestly, I obviously wouldn't have been able to bear it. But senpai's eyes went wide. Despite her alarm, she turned serious, attempting to understand what I was saying. Are you trying to say something really moving? I turned my face down. She didn't need to understand. I think what I'm trying to say is that I'm glad to have met you, senpai. No, it isn't. I look forward to seeing you during lunch breaks, Sayaka-chan. I felt somewhat envious of a senpai when she said that to my face without batting an eye, unlike my embarrassingly sappy attempt to cover up my thoughts. Still, I felt as though we weren't quite getting through to each other. Isn't it beautiful to think that we have a secret connecting just the two of us? Right. She had said that earlier as well. It seemed that she was really taken by the idea of secret relationships. It didn't really speak to me, though. To me, making it a secret meant that she felt guilty about it, which was true in my case, I suppose. It felt like a connection that would immediately snap if anyone tugged on it the slightest. Senpai, may I ask you something? Yeah, go ahead. Senpai grinned. When she spoke with me, she acted at best like someone in the same grade as me, but at worst like a first year. I felt the beginning of a chill on the autumn wind against my back and took a deep breath of it before speaking. What made you fall in love with me, Senpai? Though asking her that was honestly embarrassing. I couldn't avoid it any longer. If I didn't find out now, I wouldn't know what plan to set up going forward. Hmm. Senpai, of course, was wriggling and reeling in the face of such a direct question, her gaze wandering away. Her embarrassment even transmitted to me. I started to distinctly hear the sound of the water fountain, like I was becoming more sensitive. That's tricky. I understand. Even I would have been at loss if someone I were dating suddenly asked me that. I wonder how I'd respond. I thought for a bit. If it were me, I might have said it was the other person's face. The face is the first thing people come to love about one another. Though when I really thought about it, that was odd, too. We humans naturally understand the differences between our hands and legs and faces. We accept the differing value of beauty and ugliness. Even if a person had the prettiest hands in the world, if their face was unsightly, they would probably have a difficult time being the object of romance. Most people consider faces special. Perhaps that's because the other person's face is usually around the same height as one's eyes. Who wouldn't be happy if they could see something beautiful so often? Can't I say all of you? Senpai couldn't seem to think of anything concrete, so she tried to create an escape route for herself with what she had. Her love became somewhat muddier to me. I just wanted to know for reference. Reference for what? A lot of things. It wasn't as though I could tell her I was doing it to refine myself into a person Senpai would love. If she loved me, I wanted to sincerely respond to those feelings. A person's feelings, I thought, were something that should be handled politely. Right. Maybe it's your kindness? You're saying something random now, aren't you? I wouldn't go as far as to declare that I wasn't kind, but I also wasn't that gentle of a person. Senpai was a lot better at being friendly, in my opinion. I just think you're a really good girl, Sayaka-chan. See, this kind of thing is the problem. I'm sure anyone could be perceived as good, as long as they could just make decent conversation. Then, in that case, I'll be even kinder to you, Senpai. At my words, Senpai's eyes went round, and she laughed again. You really are so kind. When she gave me genuine praise in response to my joke, I didn't know how to respond. I don't know about that. I think anyone can seem kind, if they feel so inclined, as long as they had common sense. Anyone could produce as much kindness as they needed. It's not true, Senpai softly disagreed. Kindness comes in all different shapes. I like your kindness. Is that so? What are you trying to say at this point? Something warned me that it would be tactless if I tried asking for specifics. What Senpai was saying was so abstract at this point that I didn't know whether to be flattered or not. That seems awfully deep. Well, I have to say deep things once in a while. I'm technically your upper class man, after all. Technically, huh? I muttered in my mind. Just as Senpai had told me earlier, someone being born a year earlier didn't mean that they were more responsible. So perhaps it was tiring to have to act like a mentor all the time. I felt the same way on occasion now that I was the choir club's president. But did all of this mean that there was nothing concrete she liked about me? It's kind of embarrassing, but if I'm being serious, I think I like the way you act. Senpai put her hand on her knee and bent forward as she looked at me. The way I act, you say? Yeah, when I first saw the way you carry yourself, it just made me think, oh, that's what elegance is. Is that so? I looked down at my open palms. This must be a part of me that was so deeply ingrained that I didn't even notice it myself. I have taken a lot of lessons. I knew it. Senpai was thrilled that her assumption was right, crinkling her eyes up so much that they almost shut. But any student at this school would likely be the same way. Even Senpai seemed like she was a so-called respectable rich girl, though I didn't know anything about her family. And most of those lessons were buried in a time I had long since forgotten. I think this may have been the first time they actually came out to flirtation in the way I used to expect. You never know how the past will come to connect with the present. But well, I looked at the scene around us and let the moment pass by. I was struck by the dizziness again, at the fact that I was having a conversation like this with another girl. I think time's about up, isn't it? I murmured as I checked the time on the clock on the school building's wall. The glass on the front of the clock was cloudy and grey. Perhaps it was too high up to be cleaned. Regardless, it still accurately informed us that our allotted lunch break was over. Time does fly when you're having fun. I never thought I would actually hear someone say the cliched line I'd seen from time to time. Thus, it was true that when I was with Senpai, I thought about so many things at once. The time seemed to go by quickly. Perhaps that was my way of having fun. Senpai stood from the bench. She lightly patted down her skirt and then said, as though she had suddenly remembered, "Oh, I have something I need to do at home, so I can't wait for you after school today. I'm sorry." "No, I don't mind." I felt bad for making her wait every day, until after I was done with the choir club, anyway. Besides, our homes were in different directions, and I had to take the train, so even if she waited to walk with me, our time together was short. It also distracted me during choir, so not having to meet was actually easier on me. That was the logic behind my response. But for some reason, Senpai was silent at first. A few seconds passed. "That makes me feel a little sad, though." As she said that, a shadow of loneliness passed over Senpai's smile. "Oh, it's fine. It really is. Well then, see you tomorrow." Senpai waved her hand slightly and started to walk ahead of me. Right. If we don't see each other after school, I suppose we won't meet again until tomorrow, I realized as I watched Senpai go. Still, I puzzled over the meaning of her remark. She said she felt sad. But why? I thought over what I had said, too. I looked down slightly. I see. Senpai wanted me to be disappointed that I wouldn't be able to see her after school. When I said I didn't mind, that might have been a bit too cold. In other words, what I had just done hadn't been kind at all. Hmm. Being a girlfriend can be difficult. I had to turn my lies into the truth. After all, I was still only pretending that we were lovers while I was by Senpai's side. If anything, the more I came to love her, the more I might try to act like the version of me that Senpai wanted. I didn't know whether I could get to that point, but I still sincerely wanted to try. I wasn't opposed to taking on the challenge.